Okay, let's move on to our next sample, which is a machine stitched blind hem. So for this one, you already have the pattern piece printed off, but I went ahead and included it on Blackboard again for a second time. This is the exact same block that we used for the catch stitch. So it's the same rectangle. You can use that same one, or you can print it off a second time if you need to. But it has that 1.5 inches. I believe it's 1.5 inches, but that hem at the bottom with notches on either side to show us how deep that hem needs to be folded up. Let's see what I put it at. It's a little bit shy of 1.5 inches. It's like 1 3/8 inches. But anyways, right where those notches are is where we're going to turn it up. So you just need one copy of this. Mine's a little creased, so I'm going to go ahead and press it. And then we're going to turn it onto the back. We're going to fold up that full hem. So right where those notches are, fold up that full hem. Make sure it's nice and even across the sample, so it's an even width. We're going to press a crease into that. And then the next thing we're going to do is turn under the raw edge 1/4 inch. Ooh, it's hot. Give it a second to cool off. Okay, so let's turn that under 1/4 inch. And again, we want to measure and make sure that that stays even the whole way across. So mine's at 1 1/8 inch, and I'm going to crease that. So this look right now should look the exact same as what we did last semester for the hand stitched blind hem. So at this point, we just went and started hand stitching that hem area down to the main body of the fabric. But at this point, we're going to do one extra step to prepare it for a machine stitch. The last thing we're going to do is turn it over to the front. And then this main body of the fabric, we're going to fold it back until we have just shy of 1/4 inch sticking off the edge of the hem. So I'm going to zoom in so you can see that a little closer. So from the back, we've got that full hem folded up and then the 1/4 inch folded under. Now flip it to the front and then fold back the main part of the fabric until you see just less than 1/4 inch sticking off of your hem area. Okay, and this one we're not going to press because we don't want a permanent crease in there. We're just going to temporarily fold it back and pin it. Okay, now we're going to take this over to our machine and we're going to do our machine stitch blind hem. Okay, for a machine stitch blind hem, you need a specific foot. So that was on your supply list at the beginning of the semester to purchase a blind hem foot. I'm going to zoom out a little bit so you can see what's going on with my machine. But I'm going to go ahead. This is my foot. Mine doesn't have a leg on it. So this is the actual foot part. The leg is this vertical part that sticks up. Yours may have a leg on it, and if it does, I'll zoom back in for a second. If it does, then you just unscrew right here, and then you'll take that entire leg off and put your entire new leg and foot on. Mine has a little lever on the back to where I can detach the foot from the leg. So yours may be like that, to where you can just purchase the foot and not have to have the leg on it. So whatever yours looks like, this is my actual foot for the blind hem. It has this little bar right in the middle. If you can see that right in front of my finger, there's this little bar that your machine will be stitching back and forth, left and right over that bar. And that's part of what helps make the blind stitch. So I'm gonna go ahead and put that on my machine. And then I need to switch to my blind hem stitch on my machine. Again, this will differ per machine. So you'll need to look at your manual and see which one is the blind hem. It may be associated with a number if yours are numbered. Mine are just pictured. So for mine, it's this one. It's a mix of a zigzag and a straight stitch. So you need to look for the blind hem on your machine and switch over to that stitch. Excuse me, got sneezes. Okay, so I've switched over my foot and I've switched over my stitch. And now I'm ready to put this on here. Put my fabric on here. Okay, so I've got my thread in there and I put my thread through the slit in the foot. So there's that slit right down the middle. So my thread is actually underneath the foot. And now I'm going to put my fabric in here. And you might see that that bar continues to the front right here. There, right in between my nails, there is that bar continues to the front. That's going to act as a guide. So I'm going to put that bar right next to the fold of my fabric and keep that in line with the fold of my fabric. That's going to be my guide. Instead of paying attention to a seam allowance width, we're just making sure that that bar stays in line with the fold of our fabric. Okay, and now I'm going to get started. So what it's going to do is it's going to do the straight stitch on this right-hand side of the hem. And then every once in a while, it will jump over and do a zigzag stitch to the left. And that zigzag stitch, just the tip of the zigzag should catch my fabric over on the left. And it just creates one single stitch that holds the left-hand side to the right. So I'll show you what I mean in just a second. I'm going to go first. Back stitch, which will just make it stitch in place. And then we'll continue on. So you'll see it's doing a straight stitch to the right. And then every once in a while, it hops over to the left. And I'm just watching my fabric right here in the front, making sure that it stays in line with that bar. So the machine's doing the majority of the work for you. You're just keeping it in line and you pre-folded it to kind of prep it. Okay, and then at the end, I'm just gonna do my back stitch again, which again, it'll just make it stitch in place. Oops. Cut my threads, and then we'll pull that off. So this is what it's looking like right now. Straight stitch should be on the little portion that's sticking off, and then just the tip of the zigzag should hit onto that fold of your fabric. So I'm gonna take you over to my ironing board and I'll show you what this looks like when we unfold it. So back over here, this is from the wrong side of the fabric where we just stitched. I'm going to trim my little threads. And then now that fabric that the main body of the fabric that we folded down to reveal that hem, we're just going to fold that back up. And you'll see the tip of that triangle turns into these tiny little stitches. And if my thread was matching my fabric, those would blend in pretty well. So you just have those tiny little stitches showing on the front. From the back, you should see your full hem with that blind stitch visible from the back. Okay, I'm gonna press this because we had that little crease right there. So I'm just gonna press it nice and flat. And that's the end of this sample. Okay, so that is the machine stitched blind hem. This one is much faster and easier for hems rather than the hand stitch that we did last semester. But the hand stitch is important to learn because we use it in many more situations than just a hem. And there's some areas on the garment you'll see as we go through more semesters. There are some areas on the garment where you can't do this stitch. You can only do it by hand. So it's important to know both, because that blind stitch that we do by hand is used for many more areas than just a hem.